Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another hour of Healthy Conclusions, where we try to give our listeners important information on nutrition, exercise, and holistic alternative and integrative medicine. Please take a minute to visit our website at www.healthyconclusions.com and like us on Facebook. My name is Bob Neugebauer, and I will be your host for this evening's show. Tonight's show is being brought to you by Altrua Health Share, which has been serving its members and their families with their health share needs since 1997. Please take a moment to visit their website at altruahealthshare.org or call 888-244-3839 to see just what Altrua Health Share can offer for your family's health share needs. It could mean substantial savings to you. Our guest for this evening is Dr. Daniel Nuzum. Dr. Nuzum is a licensed DO, NMD, DN. Boy, Doc, you got a lot of things here. He's a certified doctor of natural medicine, medical acupuncturist, nutritional supplemental formula. What is it that you don't do? My goodness. He has a passion to help others and find a vitality for life. He is a licensed tribal practitioner, a council licensed doctor of natural medicine, and an osteopathic doctor. Okay, that was a mouthful, Doc, so we're very happy to have you here. Is there anything else that I missed? Because I'm sure there must be something.
Oh, man. My dad says my credentials have credentials. Is what I love to study. I don't think as a doctor there's ever comes a point that you actually know everything you need to know. I think if your toolbox isn't growing, it's shrinking. And so I have just stayed in education and keep educating and getting educated, and that's just part of my passion. If I was to, if a patient comes to me and I learned one obscure thing in one class 20 years ago that can save that person's life, and that's the only time I ever use that technique, well, praise God for that technique.
Well, in 2002, you founded Nuzum's Naturals, located in Nampa, Idaho. Your clinic served the entire Treasure Valley until you chose to focus on creating formulas and supplements that will have an impact on global health. What made you move into formulating supplements?
Originally, I couldn't find supplements that would work for the patients that I had. And so I set out to create a product for each patient that I had that I couldn't find products that would help. If there's just nothing on the market that would help these folks. And so I, every other night or every third night would turn the dining room into a clean room and get an encapsulator out and build products for a list of patients that I had that had no we just had no remedy for, and it was magical. It just was amazing. The results people got was just incredible, and so the formulas that kind of universally helped everyone that took them, we went ahead and started to get manufactured. We went to a manufacturing facility, got them made in a GMP certified facility, and started just carrying them in the office for the patients. And the patients, we were just going through it like crazy. And then other companies found out I was making formulas, and so they contacted me, and it's just grown. It's my most famous client is Epigenetic Labs with Ty Bollinger and The Truth About Cancer. Their product line is something that I designed, and they've just done phenomenal with it, and they have testimony after testimony after testimony. I was talking to Ty Bollinger's partner the other day, and he said that we're going to have to get our own database for all the testimonials that they're getting.
So you've built this business by helping people overcome their ailments by preparing specific supplements for them. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was very individual, very individualized. I would work with a formula until it worked for that particular person. And so I'd make a small amount out of it. They would take it. If that didn't help, we'd scrap it. If it did help but didn't get them all the way, we'd tweak the formula a little bit till we found what exactly worked for that person. It was a really fun process, and I still do a lot of that for my family, and for us, I still do quite a bit of that, and it's fun. I love designing products, and that's what pulled me into this. I got to the point where I either had to work in the product development arena or work in the clinic. I couldn't do both of them, and so I had to close my clinic down. And I'm also in medical school studying again, and my goal is to reopen a clinic here in probably in about 2 years. I'm hoping to open another clinic up and be able to start seeing patients again. Once that gets in your blood, it's hard to get that out of your blood here.
Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think of the supplement industry as a whole? When you've done so much work yourself, you must have had to do that because you couldn't find what you wanted outside.
That's exactly it. That was I couldn't find quality or potency or consistency that I needed for this to be an alternative medicine, quote unquote, for my patient. It had to be consistent. It had to be potent, and it had to be high quality. And those were things that I just was not finding over the years. I would come up. We'd see patients that they'd already been through every medical treatment available. Nothing had worked. They finally decided to try natural medicine. They come to see me, and they were not only ill from their illness, they were so beat up, quote unquote, after all the medical treatment, and intoxicated from the medications and so on and so forth.
You're talking about allopathic medications, not natural.
Right. Yes. There's these things have side effects because they're toxic.
Right.
And they had the toxicity from the medications, they had the illness that they were dealing with, and all of this had snowballed. And by the time they came to see me, they were almost an impossible case. And so we would take and get them the best supplements we had available, and so on and so forth. We'd do all the treatments, and if we had somebody that just did not respond, or they just did not get better, and it didn't seem to matter what we gave them, that nothing seemed to work, I'd go to work and figure out a formula for that particular patient. And what we have in my product line and in the Epigenetic Labs product line are formulas that I've been working with over the last 20 years or so that have been real consistent. These are the most consistent of my formulas.
Well, I happen to take some of your products myself, to be very honest, full disclosure. You frequently pursue opportunities to educate and have had many guest appearances on The Truth About Cancer, which I happen to be involved in with Ty Bollinger. As an expert discussing the connection between fluoride and bone cancer, have you ever seen any change in the acceptance of natural medicine by the general public? Are you seeing more acceptance? Because from my viewpoint, maybe 10 or 15% of the people even look into it nowadays.
True. When I started back, close to 25 years ago, everybody was, we were quacks. Everybody was they thought that natural medicine was still just a bunch of bunk, and it was very low. I mean, we were like 1 or 2% of the population was even seeking our help.
Well, anybody who's done any research knows that that's not a fact. If you go back into the 1800s, holistic medicine was here long before allopathic medicine even came about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you take, there's things like ancient monastic medicine that has been around for millennia. There's Oriental medicine that's been around for millennia. And there's no possible way that these natural healing techniques would survive decades, much less centuries, and way much less millennia if they didn't work. If they weren't consistent and didn't work consistently, they would never be passed on.
Hold that
It'd be
thought.
a waste of time.
Hold that thought, Doc. We're going to have to take a quick break here. We'll be back in a few minutes. You're listening to Health Conclusions, brought to you by Altrua Health Share, with your host, Bob Neugebauer, on 580 KIDO AM and 107.5 FM. Welcome back to Health Conclusions on 580 KIDO. We're speaking with Dr. Daniel Nuzum, sponsored by AltruaHealthShare.org. Okay, we were talking about your connection with natural medicine and the fact that it's not always accepted by the general public, even though it's been around for centuries. And are you seeing any change in the public's attitude towards it?
It is an interesting change. There's definitely more people interested in natural medicine today than there was when I first started. I don't know the exact numbers, but it has to be a lot more, very significantly more than when I first started. And I think there's two reasons. One, it's becoming more popular, number one. Number two, people are disgusted with the conventional medical system. They're just fed up, and they've sought help and have not got help so many times, and the medicines and remedies and treatments have backfired or not worked or have made them worse so consistently that the population is getting fed up with that particular system of medicine, and they're seeking an alternative. They're still getting sick, or they still are sick, and they haven't been helped by the guys in that camp, and so they're looking for another camp. And so we're getting a lot of crossover, a lot of people coming, jumping ship, if you will, and that are coming over mostly because they're just not getting the results on the other side. And they come over here, and in particular, they're getting results in more of the chronic diseases and autoimmune diseases and things that are have developed over time, and there is no quick fix for. They're getting help for those types of things in natural and alternative medicine, because natural and alternative medicine is all about healing. It's not about treating a disease.
Well, I tend to agree with you 100%. Do you see a movement coming in the future because of the shortage of doctors and the terrible need to change our healthcare delivery system, and a movement towards more of an integrative approach between the allopathic and natural medicine doctors in this country?
Yes, I do. There is a large group of us alternative doctors in the country that are we're working together, and we're our vision is to form a group that that'll be able to fill the gap. With Obamacare, when we went into Obamacare, the United States had about a 30,000 primary care physician deficit. Okay, so what I'm saying is we were 30,000 primary care physicians behind the eight ball for the care for our U.S. population, which means we didn't have enough doctors to go around. We were in the whole 30,000 doctors, so we were missing 30,000 doctors going into Obamacare.
And I understand that that's going to increase to 90,000 in the next 7 years.
It's hit 100,000 already. If you include doctors that have got out of practice. Just they've said, okay, with this Obamacare thing, I can't even make a living.
Well, that's true. Because of government health care, that's true.
Oh, man. There's so many that have just stepped out. They cashed in. They said, okay, I can't even make my house payment on this. Are you kidding me? And so they've stepped out. And if you include all those doctors, we're at 100,000 doctors. We're behind the eight ball. 100,000 doctors. If there was a national crisis.
Well, most people aren't aware that in the ACA Act of Obamacare, there was a section called 2706, which actually encouraged the use of complementary and alternative medicine. Yet, I found that very few states even brought that to the forefront, and it was kind of left in the background, and still is. Do you think that's something that should be incorporated into this next health care bill that we're putting together?
Yes, absolutely. We have to have that. You go around the world. First off, the U.S. ranks 98th in the world for medical health care, for medical care, and that includes all kinds of different facets, from cost to delivery to there's multiple factors in there. We're ranked 98th in the world. And one of the things with our healthcare system is it doesn't integrate natural remedies. It doesn't integrate the natural healthcare component. The top medical systems in the world are in countries like Cuba, of all places, or China, and they're way ahead of us in rating in that rating system. Like those two countries are in the top 10. We're at 98. And there's something sideways about that.
Well, do you think some of that has to do with the fact that even in our hospitals or in our labs, we're not result oriented, and we're more into worrying about the FDA and approving these particular drugs to make sure they're safe? And it's costing hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion now, to approve a drug.
Oh, yes. No, you're exactly right. It's all about. It's an industry. It's not a healthcare system. That's what we have. We have a medical industry. We don't have a healthcare system. In the industry, the problem with the industry is it's self-propagating, and everything from the top to bottom in the industry is it's all about the numbers. It's not about the patient. It's definitely not about the patient. It's all about the numbers. And the healthcare system, you have your administrative system you have to pay for. You've got your your doctors you got to pay for, you got your supporting staff you got to pay for, and you got your facilities you got to pay for. And
Well, what do you think is the key to breaking this bond that seems to be between the patients and this terrible situation we have with healthcare that has become a business? How do you break that bond? I mean, do you look for putting more of the onus on the people for staying healthy and incentivizing them, or do you put more of the onus on the doctors to get more result-oriented medicine out there so people actually get well?
I think it's both. You know, as a physician, okay, you come to see me, I take you on as a patient. My job is to assist you in either regaining your health or maintaining your health or enhancing your health. That's my job. That's what I need to do. So the doctors need to have things that actually, they need to be employing techniques and remedies and medicine and things that actually will obtain those results for the patient. That's number one. On the flip side, your health is exactly that. It's yours. It's not the doctor's health. It's not the nurse's health. It's your health, and your health is your responsibility. And if you decide to, go and, you're gonna get verschnookered every night and you drink yourself into a hole, there's consequences to that. And there's not a whole lot that we can do to we can't exactly counterbalance the abuse that you're propagating on yourself if you're going to do that, you know.
Hold on to that thought a minute, Doc. We're going to have to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a few minutes. You're listening to Health Conclusions, brought to you by Altrua Health Share with your host, Bob Neugebauer, on 580 KIDO AM and 107.5 FM. Welcome back to Health Conclusions on 580 KIDO. We're speaking with Dr. Daniel Nuzum, sponsored by AltruaHealthShare.org. So, Doc, we're talking about the possible changes that need to take place in our healthcare system and the fact that it's a failing system. It has been a failing system for some time, and that, possibly integrative medicine could play a strong part in solving this problem, but we don't seem to have very much cooperation.
True. What we don't have is being a guy that has worked in the industry for a couple of decades, you got the conventional medical system that doesn't have a place for healing. I mean, healing doesn't fit into the paradigm. Real quick, I'll tell you what I tell my patients. If you come to see me, my first thing I'll tell you is, if you're here for me to treat your disease, you're in the wrong place. I don't treat disease. I treat my wife. I treat her to dinner. I treat her to a movie. I treat her.
Right.
And if you want me to treat your disease, well, that means I'm gonna have to have to start a relationship with your disease. Your disease will keep me fed, and I will keep it settled down. That's how that works. That's the conventional medical system. That's how that works.
Well, they look for symptoms. They're not treating the whole person.
Exactly. So you go in with this symptom, and it's one symptom, one visit. You got another symptom, you have to make another visit. That we can't deal with that right now. You got bronchitis. We're not going to deal with your ingrown toenail right now. You got to come back in 2 weeks, and we'll deal with that.
Sure.
There's nothing holistic about it. Okay, that's the medical treatment model. Okay, that's the treatment of disease. Healing is completely different. And healing has very, very definitive steps and in the process that you have to take in order to heal. And it has to be a collaborative effort between the doctor and the patient. The doctor has to help the patient stabilize, number one. If you're not stable, you cannot get better. You can't heal. So you have to first be stable in order to heal. Once you're stable, now the doctor has to guide you through detoxification. You have to detoxify. If you're toxic, you can't heal. So we have to remove all the waste. We have to set the stage for you to heal, for you to get better. And by detoxifying, you eliminate almost all of the factors that cause the inflammatory conditions that most people are complaining of or suffering from. And so once you've detoxified and you're relatively not intoxicated anymore, the doctor has to guide you through a process of fortification, and you have to be rebuilt. And once you get to the point where you're rebuilt to, things are actually functioning properly again, now the doctor has to set up a maintenance program in order for you to maintain this. Okay, this is a prize that you've attained. Now you have to fight to keep it. It's kind of like freedom. It's not something that's just given to you. You have to achieve it many times, and then you have to fight to maintain it. And so with healthcare, actual healthcare would incorporate healing. But healing isn't, this process isn't being played out. No one's utilizing this process, and that's the process that I've employed with my patients over the years, and that's why I've always had such good results. Because this is the way the body is designed. The body heals this way. If you cut your finger with a dirty, rusty nail, the first thing you have to do in order for that finger to get better is you have to stop the bleeding. And we call that stabilization. The next thing you have to do in order for that finger to heal is you have to detoxify it. You have to clean the dirt and rust out of that wound. Now, once the dirt and rust is gone, you have to fortify it. You put a bandage on it. You put some salve on it and put a bandage on it and hold it tightly together so that it can heal properly. You fortify it. And then the next day you clean it out a little bit. You apply more salve. You put another bandage on it. And, you do that for a week and your finger's brand new.
Well, I noticed you didn't say anything about going for a tetanus shot.
Right.
Now, is there a reason for that? Because I'm sure everybody's sitting there saying, why didn't he say something about that?
If you clean it properly, you have there's no you're at no risk of getting tetanus.
So there's no poison going into your bloodstream.
Right. It's a matter of you got to clean it out properly. If a wound isn't cleaned properly, it can't heal properly. No dirty wound ever heals. That's applicable spiritually, mentally, and physically.
So is
no dirty wound ever heals.
So is it just that we are taught that going for a tetanus shot is the most important thing after you step on a nail?
Yes, that's simply indoctrination.
Okay.
There's, I can't tell you how many people I've treated over the years that had a tetanus shot and got tetanus within a year or two afterwards.
Isn't that amazing? Well, it happens with a lot of vaccines too.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of vaccines. You can get me on the radio another time for that. But
oh, don't worry, we've had plenty of people on about that so far. That's not a problem getting people on about vaccines. I'd like to just kind of touch a little bit about you have a very unique family background in that you grew up in a family of naturopaths, and you're the only biological son to Scott and Joanne Nussum. And you were 7 years old when your parents started adopting children, and they didn't stop until 32 children found a happy and healthy home. How is it growing up in such a large family when you were the only biological one in that family, and they were all kind of brought in?
It was an amazing experience. I mean, honestly, what I learned growing up, caring for disabled, these little boys and girls that my parents were adopting were, a lot of them were disabled. The other ones had, terrible, they came out of just horrific family backgrounds and these were shattered people, and growing up, caring for these, being a brother, caring for these folks, helping them. I had a brother that I started taking care of. He was my quote-unquote buddy. I took care of him from the time I was 10 till I was 18. He's a paraplegic, and I did all his physical therapy. I was his caregiver. I fed him. I changed his diaper. I bathed him. I, got him in and out of his bed and into his wheelchair, got him off to school every morning, got him off the school bus when he came home. And the compassion that will teach someone, what it will teach you about yourself, what it teaches you about God, what it teaches you about your place in the universe is, there's no other way I could have ever learned all the excellent lessons that I learned from growing up in that environment.
So would you say that this was basically the reason or your passion for getting into the healing business? And I don't say it as a business, but as a healer in what you do now.
Right, yes. Oh, it absolutely was very influential. My parents are naturopaths, and so we grew up with a whole natural medicine deal,
Okay, hold on one second, Doc. We're going to go back to that. Just give us a minute to take a quick break. We'll be back in a few minutes. You're listening to Healthy Conclusions, brought to you by Altrua Health Share, with your host, Bob Neugebauer, on 580 KIDO AM and 107.5 FM. Welcome back to Healthy Conclusions on 580 KIDO. We're speaking with Dr. Daniel Nuzum, and it's sponsored by AltruaHealthShare.org. So, Dr. Nuzum, tell us a little bit more about the reasons you came to work in natural medicine and what your past history, which we can see has been very important in driving you to this. I also might mention that you received your license to practice natural medicine at the age 20. That's the youngest licensed naturopath in U.S. history at the time. So you've had quite a life.
I was 10 years old. My parents adopted this little girl with cerebral palsy. She was 3 years old. She only weighed 15 pounds, and she was this tiny, tiny, tiny little one. And she had these braces that would fit around her waist and hold her legs straight. And it was just excruciating for her to get into these things. It was painful. It stretched her muscles, and she hurt. And she weighed 15 pounds, and the braces weighed 16 pounds.
Wow!
It was rough. It was just rough for her, and it was something that she had to do. She had to get into these braces, and we had to help her with learning how to walk and everything. And my parents adopted her in the spring. In sometime that summer, I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was sometime that summer, she had a particularly rough week in her physical therapy and her walking, and it was Friday afternoon. We had helped her with her walk, and got her out of her braces, and she was still crying after getting her out of her braces. Her legs just were so sore, and I thought, man, what can we do to make this fun? And so I had my one brother go get the duct tape, and him and my other little sister duct taped her feet on top of my feet, and I held her by the hands and just walked around with her for the rest of the afternoon and into the evening, and then we did it again Saturday morning and again on Sunday, and Monday morning. See, up until this point, she had never walked on her own. We would walk her in her braces, but she had never physically stood up and taken a step before. Monday morning comes around, and she came walking out of her bedroom. And that was the moment I thought, maybe I need to be a doctor.
That's amazing.
And that was the moment. I mean, from then on, I have been pursuing. For me growing up, medicine was what we call natural medicine. I didn't know there was another medicine. I was 8 years old when I found out people got shots. I was just appalled. I couldn't believe it. It was the other kids in the neighborhood had all got their boosters that day, and they were all homesick. And I was out looking for someone to play with, and came home crying. My mom's like, "What happened? What's the matter? Are you okay?" I said, "What's the matter with these parents?" She's like, "What's going on?" I said, "Why would they take their kids to the vet?"
Oh.
I thought cats and dogs were the only ones that got shots, and so when they took the kids to the doctor and got shots, I thought that they had taken the kids to the vet.
Well, you certainly you were kind of right in some respects. But I would have to think nowadays there is a little more freedom in health care, and not in all the states, but in most states, including here still, where people can make those determinations as to whether they actually do want to get those vaccinations or not.
Right.
But getting back to yourself, you've been around quite a bit. You've been through South America, the Caribbeans. You've been in a lot of different countries. Have you found that the healthcare systems in these different places you've been to are any better than what we have here? And if so, why?
Well, a lot of the countries in the Caribbean have more, down there they do a lot more results-based medicine. And so, people, they're smaller governments, and they'll pay the doctors that are doing alternative medicine if they're getting good results. That's one area that I've seen. That's pretty interesting. What is generally, kind of universal is everybody outside of the U.S. is looking for natural medicine. Everyone is interested in natural medicine. It's very, very popular outside of the United States. My goodness, anywhere I go and teach, whether it's in Europe or in Canada, not quite as much in Canada, but, Europe, Caribbean, you go to South America, go to Mexico, and, they can't sell enough tickets to have people come learn about natural medicine, because everyone's interested in it. And what's interesting is we get everyone from the mom with 3 or 4 kids, housewife with 3 or 4 kids, come into seminars, all the way to anesthesiologists and neurologists and gastroenterologists, doctors with massive amount of training and medical specialties and so on and so forth. Boy, have them all sitting in the same row because they're all just equally interested in this whole natural medicine thing. Because what they're realizing is medicine isn't designed to heal. Medicine is designed to treat. And when you treat, you're only abating a symptom. You're not fixing the problem. The problem, I define it as this. In medicine, we treat what? In natural medicine, we treat why. And so if you treat why, the problem takes care of itself. If you treat what, you're always going to treat what. You can't get past that.
So you take a holistic approach to treating people, which I personally believe is probably the right way to do it. It's hard to decide what's wrong with somebody if you don't understand the whole person. I know I have to go to get my annual physical this week, and I'm going to meet this doctor for the first time since I fired my last one because he wanted me to take statin drugs. But we're going to have to see what he has to say. But I assure you, when I get back on the air and talk about this, it's not going to be what I just heard here. He's not looking to treat the whole person because he only has 20 minutes to do it. And that's the biggest problem, I think, is that they don't get enough time to spend with patients because they're always pressured. And a lot of it has to do with there aren't enough doctors. The rest of it has to do with they're getting paid to see a lot of patients.
That's true. That's kind of a percentage across the top is the way you're paid, and the greater volume, the greater paycheck. And the problem, the problem is the model's broke. Is the problem.
Well, we're hoping that somebody like you can help us fix that model. I think it's wonderful that we have somebody like you here in the Treasure Valley that can help and maybe join us in trying to change this healthcare system. In fact, I'm going to be calling you up to find out whether you can give us a little assistance in this. I want to thank you very much for joining us this evening and offering your insights into natural medicine. This is Bob Neugebauer signing off for Health Conclusions. We hope you will join us again at the same time next Sunday for another hour of informative talk about nutrition, exercise, and alternative medicine options, sponsored by AltruaHealthShare.org on 580 KIDO AM and 107.5 FM. Thank you and good night.